Ah, is it actually recording? I don't know. I could always cut this part out of it.
Yeah, it does say that you're recording on my end.
Okay, it's not putting up a timer yet. I don't understand, but whatever. They completely screwed with Skype, so I'm not entirely certain uh, what all they did. So I'm assuming that it's actually working now. So I'll just start. Welcome to Revising Reality. It's been some time. I'm your host, Tim Kaiser, and joining me today is Mandy Valdez. I would say she's a shamaness and a cult survivor, and she helps other people, and she has her own spiritual business. So, welcome, Mandy.
Hi. Hi, Tim. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm very glad to have you here. Um, we were going to start off with talking about like higher selves and how to get in contact with them, and I want to know some of the things that Mandy knows. I kind of want to get into the ascension of Earth and humanity. Um, kind of want
Oh,
to get
that sounds
into, yeah, I think that could be great. Yeah, so where to start?
yeah, when you say connecting with your higher self, do you mean your spirit guides or whatever it
Well,
is that they
spirit
pull?
guides, every person has like an ancestral connection that's connected to their lifetime
Mm,
that has been with them. A lot of times, they go through sets, different lifetimes as well with the same being
yes.
because I don't know how much anybody knows about this because I know a lot of occulted information, but like hidden information, but beings can live in our chakra systems. So our higher selves will live in our chakra systems and whisper things in our ears. Like humans can pick up bad ones, but it's one of the pitfalls of spirituality. But once if you can learn how to reach out and contact and figure out what your higher self is, like you can, get some pretty interesting conversations going.
Definitely. It's just connecting, right?
Yeah, it's really weird. Like I knew, and I found out that I was connected to dragons, and so I figured out that like not all the thoughts that I had were my own. And sometimes when I
Mm,
posed questions, like I would pose a question to my consciousness, and I would get an answer back, but it was information that was kind of like beyond my own. How do I put this? Beyond my current level of understanding. So then I would go, oh, I'm taken aback because I'm coming back with information that seems very true, but it also is outside of my purview. You know what I mean? So you go, oh, there's something else actually listening to me. Like there's someone else actually like paying attention to my own thoughts and answering them, and that was really a turning point for me. Um, I figured out that I was connected to a dragon, which dragons are the cosmic messengers. They are the angels. And my dragon is a female, and she started teaching me. She started training me as like a shaman. Um, that's when it all really began. Is when I started talking to her. Like whenever I started having conversations with her, and I realized I was actually talking to another being that was connected directly to my body and an ancestor of mine.
awesome.
Do you connect to your higher self and talk to her?
I talk to my higher self and communicate with my own spirit guide, who is what you said, someone who's been with me since birth. And I was able to connect with him. And he is a Native American chief, and we've been connected with past lives as well. And so in this life, I've been able to really communicate with him, and it's been a beautiful experience. He's been able to bring a lot of healing in my life that I really feel like wouldn't have came any other way. But connecting with him brought that healing that I needed in order to break through the cycles in this life that I needed to heal through.
That's awesome. That's very awesome.
Yes. I know it's through him that I was able to, um, heal not only through the cult experience, but heal through, and I don't like saying him, I just, the energy is a male energy, but I don't really like to say he, but it is a male energy. But not only did this energy and this being help me through the trauma through the cult, because I really do believe that this energy and this being and this, I have a nickname for this being, and so let me just call him by his nickname. So it's Bo, and so Bo is this Native American chief that's been with me through my cult experience, and so I really feel like there was a lot of protection that Bo brought to me through this cult experience, and I think that, of course, I initially signed up for this mission, but I do feel that there were limits and boundaries that, like, he made sure that I wouldn't and they wouldn't cross those lines and those boundaries with me. And so I really look back now and know how protected I was. Yeah, I signed up for it and I had to go through the pain and the mission, but there was some things I was like, no, let me just remind you that she is not going to go through this and this. And it was like, okay, like it was a reminder. He was very, very protective. And then after, when I had to begin healing through the childhood shit,
Yeah.
that's a that's a whole different story. And it came through Bo giving me a vision of the fact that he was there since birth. Like this energy had been there since birth. And so like I had never been alone. So a lot of visions that he has showed me brought so much healing. And so through all that healing, it's able just to pass that healing on to those that come into contact with me and are drawn to that same desire. So I
Wow.
love how you connect with, the dragon and her. Like that's beautiful. I love that.
Well, I didn't realize it, but my dragon is like a goddess level dragon. She showed up once. Like they live in your chakra system, but they might not put all their energy in you.
Mhm.
Like I was outside and I just happened to like read this stupid little I happened to be like on my phone or something like this, and I was reading some article about something. I don't know what it was about. But I happened to read a side thing that said how to summon Aphrodite, and I was like, that's weird. Like, why even would why would a being like that even care about what a human wanted?
Oh,
That was what I thought. But my
right.
my dragon was like, fuck you, human, I'm gonna show up. And I was like,
Oh,
that's what she said. Well, she didn't really say that in as a turn
right, right.
of an answer. And I was like, I hesitated. I'm like, okay, that's fine, whatever. So I walked like all the way back to the house because I was outside smoking a cigarette. And I walked all the way back into the house, and she was standing in my room near my computer, right where I am now. She was literally standing there, and I could see her. Like she's spiritual, so she wasn't physical, but like
Wow.
it was like I can't even. I have never met a more feminine being than her. She like
Mm,
just it was like I don't know, it was like walking up to the love of your life, and she's just like so much more magnetic and attractive than any being you've ever seen. And you're going, I can't imagine what you're doing here, and then she just enters me, and I'm just like, okay. But that was
mm,
my higher self, and
wow.
like it was one of those spiritual moments where you question everything because like there's this being like she's brilliantly red, like she has a bright red energy field, and she feels like 100 women in one. So when she looks at you, you're just like, and if she puts any like energy your way, like, oh, I want to like love or lust a little bit after you, like you feel that
Wow.
immediately, go, holy fuck, I will follow you into anywhere. Like, I just can't, like if I met a physical woman like that, I'd fall in love in an instant. I wouldn't have a
Yeah,
choice. Like it'd be like
love
what?
it.
Like you know what I mean? Like it would be logical. It'd be illogical to choose anything but her, if you
Uh-huh.
will. Like that's what it was. And I'm not sure. I'm pretty like well. I have a friend Steve. We do a lot. He's in Australia. We do a lot of work together, like on the spiritual plane. He's been training me as well. He's like my spiritual teacher kind of a guy. But
Mhm.
he said my dragon visits him occasionally, and he says she's like a being of light and extremely feminine. He was like, I guess he didn't exactly expect that because it's just been like a weird thing for me is that I meet a lot of feminine spirits, and for some reason I must feel a lot like her because they want to like sit down and chat and like discuss things and then interact. Like they do things. They showed me a form of body sharing where you kind of know and feel exactly what the other person is feeling. So like it's like what they would share it with like a mate or someone very close to them. And they taught me how to do that, and that was one of the really weird things that a lot of people question, I guess. Um is about that sort of thing, and a lot of people don't know how to do it, but I wish it was more commonplace because it would make so many more relationships so much more fulfilling if you could feel more of your partner. One time, one time, well, actually, well, let's just say that one time I was gifted a female orgasm as part of the sharing,
Mhm.
and that was the most amazing thing ever. Like men
Wow.
don't know anything. Men don't know anything. Like I had that, and I just fantasized about it all the time. I'm just like, man, I wish I could have it again and again because that was better than anything. Like it was better than anything. Like it sounds like something maybe I shouldn't talk about on the air, but it's one of those things that I think would help people more in their relationships if they were able to share more. And I mean, if they knew more about their partner, they would be able to make it a lot more intimate and healing, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I just read a quote that you're talking about that, and I just read this quote. I think it was like a few hours ago that said something like that about in a connection you have these two that are just basically we're made up of programming, conditioning, traumas, and pain from our whole life. Like that's who we are, and if we'd have more understanding and like you said, feel that it would totally cause a deeper and like intimacy
Yeah,
on a whole different level.
it
I,
is. Go ahead.
I feel like the like relationships really bring that, they can either bring especially when you're ready for that conscious relationship. Of course, we go through a lot of fucked up relationships and that's different. Like, but like the ones where we're like ready for the consciousness and the awakening and the growth and the involvement, I feel at that point, this connection can bring so much more healing. And I've had to learn that. And I felt like I had to learn it the hard way only. I say that because of my own conditioning, programming, and pain and trauma that I went through with I didn't realize how fucked up it was. Like I think when it's somebody like I mean, we're all amazing and we're all strong, but like when you realize that you're still alive after all the pain and the trauma that you have gone through and like for me escaping a cult, this is shit you see in movies. And like I'm like, hold up, I fucking lived a movie, and it's like, and I'm still alive, like, and it's like, then I think a conscious relationship kind of just brings you back to center and grounds you and shows you that yeah, you've gone through some fucked up shit, and you really starts revealing that you're like, oh my, I'm fucked up, but like not in this like you're beating yourself up or anything like that, but just in the way of like damn, like it shows that healing is that much more incredible, and then that conscious relationship or that conscious partnership um, can definitely bring healing on a whole another level. I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. It,
And
like
kind of
the first time, well, I wouldn't say that. I would say that I have had more healing experience through like me being with like one of the women that I've dated over the years. Because I've never really settled down as much as I've wanted to. It's been like unfortunate that it hasn't happened yet. But every time, like when I approach it, I try to approach it as it should be as healing as possible, for both. And when it was about 2.5 years ago, that I really started when I first started talking to my higher self like regularly, and was I finally like able to access higher information, and I was put things together to figure out what in the world was going on. Um, the first I'd say like before that, the first time I had a encounter with an alien spirit. I'm not talking about through DMT or anything. I mean, like I was sober, except I was smoking weed. But I was just like I was sitting in my house all alone. My cat was there with me. The door was locked. You know, everything's fine. I was drinking. I was eating soup. I was eating this miso soup I had made, and all of a sudden, I felt a presence in the room. Before I could react or anything, I was slapped on the back, like physically slapped on the back, and I spit my soup out everywhere because I was in the middle of eating it. And I'm going, "The fuck do you want?" Because I didn't know what was going on. But a dragon came to visit me, and I didn't. And she like was in my house. I couldn't really see her because I couldn't see, but I could feel her there, and she was like very like loud about it. You know what I mean? Like she was like, "Okay, I want you to draw me." Like, what is her first thing? Like she wanted me to draw her. So I was like, "Okay, I will draw you." So I drew her, and like she has a humanoid form, and that's how she visited. But she also has like a dragon form or whatever else she wants to show because they can be shapeshifters. But she had me draw her, but her presence was so like um sexual that she was that after that she had me like she taught me how to like spiritually have spirit sex with her. And I thought that was really weird. You know what I mean? I didn't see her again for like a long time. But then it came to like October 2020, I think is when it was. And all this crazy stuff happened when I started talking to my higher self, and I started really getting involved. Well, um, I went through a first training phase, and then I did these special spiritual meditations, which I actually want to talk to you about. But I did them on LSD. Steve was on the call. Once he was done, once he had gotten me through these meditations, he thought I was crazy for doing them on LSD. He thought I was fucking nuts for it. His thing is always sober. His thing is always sober. Me, I'm a little bit of an experimenter, so whatever. But
Yeah.
um, he thought I was crazy for it. But once I was done with those two spiritual meditation things and put myself kind of in like a meditative place, I tried to do another hit or another dose of LSD. So like I was already tripping, but it wasn't very strong. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do another dose. But I was like, this time I'm going to give it an intent and see if it works. Well, you always got to be careful with any kind of spiritual work on any sort of psychedelic because the LSD and when I put it on my tongue that time, like I gave it an intent, and all the intent was simple. It was like increase my sensory depth perception because I'm an artist and I wanted to see energy fields and stuff, and I wanted to draw them. Like that was really my acrylic core. That was what I wanted to do. That's all I wanted to do. As I wanted to be able to draw things. Like I wanted to be able to see people's energy fields and like be able to read them and all this stuff instead of being like through a fog. Like because I was able to do that stuff, but only through a fog. So
Mhm.
I did the whole I put the stuff on my tongue after saying I want to increase my sensory depth perception. And it just I could feel it on my tongue, and I could feel it like multidimensionally, and I could feel it like I was tasting it, but I was tasting beyond it. It wasn't just normal like okay, I'm gonna put this in my mouth and it'll do something to me. It was more like the stuff like bonded to me as I was sensing its tasting its components on my tongue. I was like multidimensionally understanding what its makeup was, and then
Mhm.
it blew up all over my body. It went from my tongue, and it was just like this pink orange rush all across my body. Like I can't, it's hard to even describe. But like it just like the substance itself, there was only three hits. It just blew up on my tongue and just went everywhere through me. And that was that. I have been completely different ever since. They basically said that I ascended that night. Like, in other words, I moved up like both physically and in dimension that night. Um, just do that. And
Wow.
I it was pretty crazy. Um And I would thought, whatever, I'll be fine, whatever, it'll be a nice trip, and then I'll wake up in the morning, everything will be back to the same. Well, I went up to my room, and LSD can be very sensual, so I was like, I'm gonna touch myself in my private room, right?
Mhm.
Well, I looked around and I realized in my room there was basically I couldn't see that well, but I could see that there was presences in the room. My bed was surrounded. It was like there was like 20 or 30 shadow people, I guess you would call them. Not that they were threatening or anything, but they were just standing around watching me. I'm going, what do you guys want? And they were like, we have never seen a human like you before. And I was like, fuck, I have never heard that from an alien species before. Like, usually they're usually pretty, secure around humans or whatever. Like, we're dumb and annoying and whatever.
Mhm.
But they don't tell people that generally. And ever since then, they were very sensual and they were always teaching me things, always. Like, I can't go through a single day without being taught something. I'm still considered a student in this regard. Though things have changed. My code name, they used to refer to me as the little one. That was what they called me. Always little one. They were like little one, and I knew when they were talking to me because it was little one. Like, you know what I mean? Like I didn't like they weren't calling anybody else that. They was my nickname. So that was pretty funny. But like that was like the start of like the craziness because ever since then, yeah, nothing's been the same at all. My brain can understand and interfere, not necessarily interfere, I should say, understand and improve energy. I can like look into people's chakra systems and give them energy directly to a single chakra if I wanted to. I have been given consciousness upgrades by the extraterrestrials on multiple occasions. One time, a Venusian mantid gave me a hive mind complex from their species and plugged it into my head. I had that thing for years before I figured out how to use it. Um, like it's something that's like foreign to you, but like your mind can learn how to access it and use it. Technically, I can give those away, um, like for other people to experiment with, but that's just one of the strange capabilities that I've been given, not only because of my brush with LSD, but one of the weird things about me and that they specifically have told me over and over again, and even though it sent me into a literal 2-day panic attack because of it, like, and I'm still recovering, but they ended up telling me after all like this time, and it took years for them to do it, but they were like, listen, you're the Christ. And I was like, no, I don't want to have those kind of shoes to fill. I'm just a stupid shaman, leave me alone. uh, but I was told on multiple occasions that it's technically true. And from what I remember, the previous Christ was she was a female. So like it's been a rude awakening.
Yeah.
Oh, I just thought I was some runaway shaman, and they were like, "No, you're the second coming." And I was like, "Fuck, I'm 80 years too early." Like I wasn't supposed to be here yet. Like
I
according to
think that
everybody
we're
else, like the prophecies are all like for a while yet. Like the Earth isn't even supposed to ascend or anything till 2084. So I'm ahead of the schedule.
I think that we're and I think it's so amazing that like the other beings that see us, like I think a lot of people who like you feel like you're not enough in some aspect or some arena, and then it's like if only we knew how much like elevated we really are. Like these beings, they watch us and they see us, and they're there to communicate with us, support us, help us, and all of that good stuff. But it's like in a sense they are also very like like when I say like they bow down to us, to the fact like we've chosen a mission that I feel like not everybody can complete. And when I say everybody, I don't really mean human. I mean like the beings that whatever, our core, where we came from, like we chose this mission. We said yes. And there are a lot of beings, and it's okay. They said, no, thank you. But So I feel like in a sense that they see us and we're completing our missions and we're going through all of the, you know, the stuff that we're going through, which some of it's pretty fucking hard. And we're still here and we're still completing it. And so I feel like in that arena they look at us with a bit like awe.
Yeah, it's tough because of all the trauma that we carry through our ancestral lines.
Mhm.
Physical bodies and spirituality, like they're supposed to mix, but from what I understand, humankind they weren't really supposed to make a spiritual animal. Um, that that humankind, like we actually have several different alien races DNA in us,
Right. Right.
and their brain structures. So like there's the reptilian brain, which is not a
Mm.
reptilian brain from here. It's a reptilian brain from out there. We're talking about the reptilians themselves. We're talking about they authorize us to have their brain system. And so there's three of them, the mammalian brain, and then the top of it is the cerebral cortex, but that comes from Syrians. And the Syrians technically never authorized anyone to use their DNA, their cerebral cortex here. So we're technically unauthorized creations. Because DNA is like the biggest currency in the universe, if you will. It's the biggest
Mhm.
commodity anyway. Like human skin suits are actually extremely important, if you will. Like the development of humans, the development of man, if you will. I would really rather call us woman. I feel like we're a very feminine race. My friend Steve has decoded like the myths behind the Adam and Eve and stuff like that, and he's saying that Adam is like Neanderthal and Eve is a representation of what we are, which is much more feminine. So, if you look at the rest of us versus the rest of the world, it's obvious we're different. We have so much little hair, and we're not protected to the environment. Like our survival is dependent on our ability to clothe ourselves, feed ourselves, as opposed to everything else. Like we're not just some animal running around. We have like spiritual cause and direction. Human beings are very much an experiment and a high class one.
Mm.
We are designed to eventually, like be able to ascend. Um, from what I understand, Prime Creator came here in 2011, and she basically, well, I call her a she. Um, I have found out that the dragons are pretty much consider themselves female. They might have the capacity for both polarities, but like all these stories of male angels and male gods and all this stuff like that, well, anywhere but here, the females rule the roost. That's one of the
Right.
reasons why they did that to Christianity. Like everything came from a vagina and a womb. You know what I mean? Like people
Mhm.
think, oh, like here they live on Earth. They're like, oh, the patriarchy and all this stuff. I'm sorry, but like I disagree with that on every capacity. I'm not sure. I'm not saying there ain't no male gods or whatever out there, but I've found a lot of them can switch whatever, and they respect females a lot more out there in the wide universe than is respected on surface Earth, which sucks but I think it was done that way on purpose. I think they wanted us to think that, from what I understand, the original Jesus or whatever was a female, so that she was the daughter of God, not the son. And that's a huge like thing. Like that's a huge thing. And technically, what I discovered was my dragon is the royal twin for the Empress of the Dragons. And they all seem female to me. I haven't met a single dragon that I wouldn't hang out with in an intimate setting. Not me personally. You know what I mean? Like, and that might sound whatever, but like, if you run into one of them, if they pretend to be male, it's because they're pretending, or they're just showing that side, whatever. I'm pretty sure they're all basically girls. That's what they tell me anyway. And that's an
Awesome.
interesting. It's very interesting. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of like the sexual separation here on Earth and in many other places, but um, and there's nothing wrong with that. But here they tried to make it so that patriarchy was the norm. Whenever I mean, it can be at places, but a lot of times, like I said, females rule the roost. Like I think I learned that growing up, even on Earth.
Good, good for you. Because it's just it's terrible, the cult that I was in, it was very dominated by, the males. And so having to be subjected to, just intense um psychological abuse just because you're born with a vagina is it's very intense and it's horrific, but it's like, that it's not real. Like, it, but it's like, for whatever reason, I had to bring ancestral healing to my line to clear that out, because years and years of that in my DNA and my ancestral lineage of them eating that, eating that, and not being able to speak out against it, and then clearing it out all the way to the beginning um, where they didn't have that, because it wasn't even there in some parts. I mean, like, in some, it wasn't there even though it was on Earth. Like, it wasn't there for certain people until the religion. I feel like a religion aspect of it really did a lot of damage.
I think I listen. I came out of Christianity. My parents are still Christians, love them, but whatever. I do obviously believe in the presence of Creator Prime, if you will call her that. Um, I mean, obviously, if I'm the son or daughter, well, I'm a son this lifetime. I can't change that. I was born a dude.
Hmm.
But ever since I started discovering this whole female aspect, yeah, I don't really feel like a dude anymore. I mean, I really
I
don't.
don't blame you.
I don't, and it's like really weird because I used to really creeped out by all that stuff, but I'm just like, wow, I rediscovered my own femininity, and like I don't really like I don't really like feel that way anymore. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to like act like that. Like I still am. You know what I mean? Like I can't unlearn my body, but like
Right.
my inner spirit is extremely feminine, and it really was. It doesn't actually surprise me now. Like it doesn't actually surprise me. I think that's why people don't think that the real Christ existed or whatever it is, because if they spiritually even try to find the guy, it's actually a girl, and it's actually high like knowledge, occulted knowledge to even know that in the beginning. You know what I mean? Like, if the church is going out publicly saying that Christ was a dude, then they obviously don't want you to know anything about the real person behind it because she was a woman. Like you could say that Mary was the Christ. You know what I mean? So I don't even know what her name was. The problem is, like, I know certain past lives and certain areas of past lives that I've been through, but I think for the purpose of my life, I have been blindfolded and like, you know what I mean? Like my hands are tied behind my back and I have to do it all like that. Like in other words, like I've been forced to run uphill like 2 ways in January, like, covered in molasses or something. Just make it as messy and as terrible as possible because that was my life. Like until I got to, the point where I was actually being trained by extraterrestrials. When that started happening, then my life started taking off in a lot better way. But I used McDonald's, like I was working at McDonald's at the time. Right now I'm working at a much better restaurant type thing, but um I was using my job to try to train myself to always be in meditation. Like, if you're on a high spiritual path and you're going to end up with being entrusted with high spiritual powers, you have to be in perfect control of those at all every single second of every single time, every single day. So if you're not asleep, you have to be in perfect control of yourself. That's just all there is to it. And despite, if anything pisses you off or you want to think about something dumb or whatever, you're not allowed. Like you're just not allowed. Like because you will be suffer the karmic consequences of going off on a limb and saying something stupid. Like in the early 18th century or later, I don't remember. There was a whole book written about it. I don't remember his name. But I read this story about a guy who, if he thought something bad about a person, it would literally have something bad would happen to them. So he literally had to like do everything he could to retrain his mind to be as nice as it possibly could to people because that he couldn't because he just couldn't like he could never cross that line. He was because he knew that if he accidentally thought something bad about somebody else and it happened to them, then he knew he would be punished karmically. So he was like, I can't do this. And the guy, like, he's lived in England. I don't remember his name. It's I don't remember. I don't even know how to look him up. I might have a book on him on my computer, but I don't remember where I read it. But it's a true story. It might have been they were recounting telepathic stories about like sometimes like men and women like become married and they can feel when how each other's having tooth pain or something like that. Um, but yeah, so I felt like that was happening to my mind, and I knew that I could like never that I had to have perfect mental clarity, perfect mental control, and it is the most difficult thing you can possibly do to master your mind. I'll tell you what, like, especially if you end up with any, if through the line of your spiritual existence you accidentally get like hit with a negative entity and you can't figure out how to get it to leave, living like that, like that'll send you right to the mental ward. I've been in mental ward several times. Like it's a common thing among people who end up learning to become shamans or something like that.
Mhm.
Uh, because you just can't like that I did accidentally bump into something negative, and I spent 12 months. And something to understand about the difference between the aliens time and our time is that for them 20 minutes might go by, or sorry, for us 20 minutes might go by, but it's 20 hours for them.
Mm.
So they move at a speed that's beyond us, and they are always prepared for what we're going to think because they're ahead of us. Like they literally are ahead of us. Like they can dodge our fucking thoughts. They can dodge us. They're much quicker than us. Aliens and spiritual entities are much faster than humans. So, um, when I say that I had 12 months of our human time stuck dealing with a negative entity that I just couldn't get rid of, um, let's just say that it's very, very, very difficult to recover from because you have to get your brain back from that brink of like being like it feels like it's constantly under attack. So you have to like when you were talking about like the men in the cult, bashing on women. Imagining having someone in your brain that you can't get away from constantly bashing you for being who you are and trying to get you to like act out spiritually on your friends like that will send you straight to the mental ward. Like that was horrifying. That is like the worst thing to have to deal with. The more biggest pitfall of spiritual life is anything negative out there. Like if you start to learn how to become telepathic, then any of them can talk to you technically. So you have to be careful about where you get your information from. And I self limit myself. I have used NLP, which I'm sure you've heard of, like neuro linguistic programming. I used that in the English language to try to put in like a control system in my mind so that I wasn't being constantly led around by my brain going in circles down mental trails into nowhere. You have to almost like retrain your whole consciousness to try to get back to the good person that you were before. And it has taken me a long time, and I'm finally starting to calm down. But like 12 months under that thing's rule was more than enough for me to want to you know seriously harm myself so that I couldn't deal with it anymore. But I managed to pull out of that, and now look at it. They tell me that I'm supposed to be the second coming. Like, great. That means I have to contend with all the Christians because I don't believe in their stupidity.
Oh gosh.
I don't even want to do because I know that there are people out there right now claiming that they are what I am, and after going through what I've gone through and the ascension and stuff like that, and all the interactions I've had with aliens and having them in my bedroom and all this other crazy stuff, I'll tell you what. Anybody else who wants to pretend they are, good freaking luck. They don't even know what's even. You could read the Bible and you don't even know what the freak is going on. Like it is not. I don't even think those. I don't even think the Bible was designed, at least like the current Bible, when it was rewritten
Mhm.
by the Nicene Convention. You know what I mean? Like they. they basically took out like all the important bits, and like that's not even spiritual reality anyway. Spiritual reality is meditation and honing your senses so that you can become psychic. Like spiritual
Right.
reality is becoming one with yourself and healing yourself. That's one of the biggest things that needs to be done, is to heal the self, is to heal the emotions, is to heal the body, to heal the spirit, because we carry around all this past karma. We have to get ourselves back to some sort of zero karmic balance, and then we can begin to help others. I mean, that's really the spiritual path to begin with.
That's it.
Anybody seeking to abuse it anyway, they're going to end up with karmic, with karmic regrets. Like it's just the way it works. It's just the way it is. The universe at large punishes stupidity, in a way.
And and everything that the religion teaches is everything the opposite of what you said about being one with yourself, healing yourself, and all of that. It's like it's everything's outside of yourself in that religion, and that's what keeps you stuck in this frame of mind that you have to seek elsewhere. And the whole time the answer is inside of you because of your core of where you come from. Like we all come from different, you know, uh, from before we came onto this into the earth plane. And as a little girl, I had a severe head trauma. I was probably like 5 years old, and since I was so little, it was I could have died, and I didn't, and survived, and I'm still here today. And it was about maybe a month, no, I would say 2 months ago. I was in meditation, and I had this kind of pouty moment where I said, why, like, why did that have to happen? Why did I have to have that severe head trauma that there are some effects that I still deal with to this day, with TBI? And um, I remember the ET that my core is from, them speaking to me and telling me, um, very, very gently, that the reason why I had the head trauma at so young was that I had begun to remember my core, and I had memories of where I had come from, and they had to remove those memories from my mind, and that was the reason why I had had the head trauma at 5 years old, to erase basically my memory. And it made sense, and at that moment I made peace with it, and I was like, okay, it makes sense. And I really believe that if I would have stayed with the memories, I wouldn't be who I am today. And the fact that I would remember my core, and then I probably would have they would have probably put me into a mental ward, because I would have had to, to the humans, I wouldn't have made any sense. So I would have sound like a crazy psycho. But
um,
thankfully.
yeah, yeah. I'm not entirely sure what it all was about, but I had an incident like before. I was always into spirituality, but I always like pursued it in the background. Well, I had like two jobs at the time, and I was working myself to I was just working myself crazy. And my one job was painting and doing like house and upgrades and improvements. Well, we were painting a church. Spiritually, somehow, for some reason, I guess everybody in my life decided that I needed to have a wake up call. So I ended up falling 12 feet and breaking my fibula down by the ankle, my back, and then the ladder fell on top of me and snapped my fibula, or sorry, and punctured my lung and broke my rib. So that was a spiritual lesson, one I still regret having to have. Like I still have pain in my back from that, and that's sort of the same thing. But except that happened much later in life, and it was to hurry me up. They wanted me paying attention to spirituality more. They were like, "Screw having a second job. You need to have just focus on getting stuff done. Focus more on art. Focus more on healing and stuff." And I didn't. I was very like sad because I spent a month and a half in the freaking hospital over it, and another 6 months or so dealing with that and dealing with having to walk in a cast and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes we do. I wouldn't necessarily say get penalized, but it's like our lives are teaching us a lesson, and sometimes it's not a good. No, sometimes it's not a very nice one. Even if you know what I mean, it's designed to keep us on track, so we don't either wake up too early or it's telling us, "Hey, you're late. Like you
Mm.
got to wake up."
Yeah, and
Which
it's okay.
I didn't believe that I deserved to get pushed off the freaking
No.
scaffolding, but whatever. Like I still like when it happened, I did feel like I got spiritually pushed. Like something was there and it pushed me. I was going just fine. I was, on the edge, but I was just scooting along and all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, I got pushed and I was like, "Oh fuck, I'm starting to fall." And that was that. Like I don't go around heights anymore.
I don't blame you.
Where would we like to go now?
Oh, how did you said that your parents were in Christianity. So did you grow up in religion? Like how do you feel, I mean, how do you like do you have a belief now that what would be the purpose of, what is the purpose for you having to go through that? Because I know for some people they could have like a nice Christian upbringing, they if that's what they want to call it. But for me, going into a cult at 16, like I can definitely tell you, I know the shadow, dark stuff of it when you're in that mindset. But do you feel like you know why you would have chosen to go through this religion as part of your mission here on earth?
Well, I think I was put into a Christian family because A, of stability, B, of the amount of lessons that Christianity can teach you, even if it's through shame, blame, and guilt in the worst ways. Um, I think that in order for me to be the Christ, the second coming, I think I had to get born into a Christian home. I really do. I think that way I could at least understand this thing they call Christianity, which isn't really isn't really there to boost people at all. I think it's there to instruct certain kinds of morals, some which are very, very good. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of good stuff in what they left of the Christ story, but the edits and the stuff that I remember, from what I understand, there was no cross. That's a bunch of BS. I don't think they ever hurt the Savior, if you want to call her that, because her job was just to show people that you could ascend. She was a spiritual teacher. That was what she did. That was the whole freaking purpose of the thing. Like that was the purpose. Like the purpose was to ascend and to show people that they could do it as a human. That was the purpose. Uh, so you go through the birth canal of forgetting, and you have to get your way all the way back up to remembering. And
Mm.
like uh, like I think she did heal the poor and do miracles, but she also traveled the entire world and sampled every single religious system that there was. From what I understand, the Christ, I'm not entirely certain where she was actually born. I'm pretty sure that the legends are wrong, and calling her a Jew is BS. I'm almost certain. I sense Asian lines. I have a real connection with Japan. Um, I spent a past life there recently that I do remember. My last past life, actually. So I have a lot of connection to Japan, and Japan is actually very much a dragon place on the earth. Um, it's also a refugee place. Like a lot of races or beings that want to get incarnated as humans can't find another land to accept them. Japan will, because it's basically a refugee point. It's a place for that. It was designed as that place, if you will. So there's a lot of special things happening with there. But the original Christ toured the world and sat with the Hindus and sat with all these other races and sat with all these other religious systems. And that was one of the things that she did was she was a religious teacher. And so all this BS about Christianity being the only religion and all this stuff like that, it's a bunch of nonsense. And I think that was one of the reasons why I was put into this particular skin suit and this particular family line, why I was born where I was, is because that I had an understanding of that. So that because when I grew up reading the Bible, I grew up like doing all that stuff. But we grew up as independent grace Christians, and my parents would constantly leave churches if the pastor said something that offended them. So like we didn't really like have a church. We were our own little church, and that was it. We were very independent Christians, and we didn't really like trust what anybody else told us about the Bible. We wanted to discover it for ourselves. That's very much a trait in my family. So it's funny. I was, made to be a Christian, but I was made to be involved in the religion in the beginning. But I think that was to train me for this so that I had, so if I talk to Christians and they find out that I am what I am, when they go and say, oh, blah, 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 and I'll be like, no, I'm sorry, but your Bible is wrong. And I can argue with them about it. But like, you can't argue with people about that kind of stuff because they put their belief systems ahead of reality. And that's the problem. What you believe doesn't necessarily make it a reality. You have to test and prove that. Uh, I have long since like applied that to spirituality. If you like, you can go and watch someone's YouTube videos where they're really close on stuff and you know it, and they could be a spiritual reader, but you always want to test and prove it for yourself. You always want to find a way to test and prove that information. And the answer in spirituality is becoming good enough to be able to astral travel and talk to, those that are above us and discuss things with them and ask them questions and read the spiritual energies. That's extremely important, but the goal is to figure out for yourself if you're right or wrong. The goal is to figure it out through experience because that nothing can teach you like experience. That's the thing that gets that like blind faith is almost useless because if you blind faithing in something you don't fully understand, then you don't know any of it. You don't know any of the height and breadth of the width of the situation. And that's the problem with most humans is they're just told to believe this thing or the other thing, and they're not actually told to test and prove those beliefs. They're not told and go to figure it out for themselves. And that's the biggest thing missing from spirituality is exploration. They're told not to explore. They're told don't look at new ideas. Don't go this way. Don't go that way. And don't get me started on Christianity and sexuality because I think it's one of the stupidest things ever. Like, they tell Christians these days, like, oh, you should be save yourself till marriage. But then, how do you know what you even like? like, how do you know anything if you're gonna do that? I mean, I understand. I guess there's some good reasons for that in some regards, but
It's because it's all
geez,
duty for them.
yeah,
They're
but I can't imagine that. Like, I'm sorry, I grew out of that. Like, I would much rather know if I'm compatible with someone before I'm gonna try to spend the rest of my life with them. I've
Mhm.
already been divorced once. I don't want to do it again.
Yeah, they're so off. It's so sad. It's just control.
It is, and I don't like this episode's gonna be public, so some people will know that I said that you know I'm supposed to be the Christ, but that doesn't mean I have any ties to religion as far as Christianity goes, because what people understand as Christianity is a shamble. It's designed to keep you off track. Like the Christ was supposed to show you how to ascend. It wasn't like it wasn't like, oh, you got to ask him in your heart and all this other stuff like in order to be saved from wherever. Like you're gonna like people like don't understand. They're gonna keep reincarnating here until they're ready to move on or until they get out of the system. So uh, you know this whole business about heaven and hell and all this other stuff is like nonsense. Like there is a heaven, but my dragon was born outside of this universe. So that puts everything into a new perspective. Because then where the freak is actual heaven? It's somewhere beyond here. And that's something to think about. And most people don't get that. Like they think that, this universe is the only place, whatever it is, but there's a bunch of other ones. And they're not all like this one, but from what I understand, love is one of the foundational rules of everything, and it kind of exists everywhere. And that's, like it's a foundational rule. Like I've had a psychedelic experience where I had this changa type stuff, which was like the DMT in it and the Syrian rue to make it last longer and stuff. And you smoked it. Well, I smoked it in my house, and I went to go lay on my bed, and it just felt like even my clothes loved me. And
Hmm.
I've had that feeling for a long time. Like reality kind of loves us. Like we're here for a reason, and we're here to sort things out. And like it's our job. Even just being a normal human who doesn't have any contact with spirituality, like you're still doing like work for your whole ancestral chain. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're like the next one on the line, and you're supposed to make things better. Like that's just the whole freaking point of the experience. You're always moving up. And that's what the goal is. That's what the goal of spirituality is: ascension in the long run. Like people say, oh, it's up to all humans to die. Well, no, technically we're living in the time of ascension, which means that human beings are supposed to figure out their greater purpose and figure out how to ascend physically. Um, I mean, we live in that time. I know people like sometimes doubt it a lot and whatever, but we're literally living in like the most exciting times that the world has ever seen. And we don't realize that. Like, I personally would have rather been born in the 1970s because the music was so much better. Well, actually, I've discovered a lot of good music nowadays. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of people say that the culture was better. Well, we almost had our freedom in the 1960s and the 1970s, but the government found a way to cut us short to get back their powers because they used looking glass for one, which is their way of looking ahead in the future, and to try to see things, and they did everything they could to try to stop the revolution of love. But we're living in the revolution right now of ascension, and it's literally happening before our very eyes. um, and we don't know what's coming for us. We really don't. And humanity is in for a rude surprise. That's what I have to say because I think eventually, we're going to end up being like ambassadors for the human race because the whenever things get more fixed around here, there's going to be a lot more contact, like physical contact between the higher realms and us. It's just a consequence of ascension. And more humans are going to end up waking up in the middle of this and figuring this out. And a lot of humans were like literally like spiritually like told to be here. And if they weren't, they're accidentally here in the best place that they could possibly be because the ascension is really happening. And like I said, I've actually physically ascended. uh I'm still like on Earth. I wasn't supposed to leave, but like I've been through it, and as weird as it is on the other side, it's worth it. But most people, I think, are happy or blissfully unaware, and there's not much we can do about that. That's like up to them.
Right, yeah, and I feel like religion, it keeps you from ascending. Basically, let's put it in a nutshell. That's kept me from ascending. And then tell me why, like, I left in 2018, and within about a year and a half, I had awakened like that fast. Remove the religion aspect in my life, and bam, a year and a half, and I was already flourishing and awakening to be like going back to my core. Like, I mean, if that ain't proof, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's designed to constrict human consciousness. I think Zen is a really good one. I think Taoism is one of the most pure systems of thought, if you will. I think Taoism is like the best. If anybody looks it up, it's Tao. It comes out of China, I think it is. But the Tao, the Tao, D. It sounds like you're saying DAO, but it's Tao. And it's a beautiful system of thought, which is quite like the Zen, but it's all about like using consciousness and staying calm under any circumstances, which is one of the biggest things people can teach themselves. Like everybody says, "Oh, well, I'm allowed to have a little bit of anger, blah 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 blah." No, like you shouldn't never, like you know what I mean. Like if you're gonna get exasperated, that's one thing. But you got to make sure that like you're just getting your point across, as opposed to actually like hurting somebody or getting to the point where you want to fight. Like that's human beings really need to read that out of their consciousness. Like it's one thing to defend yourself or defend others. It's another thing entirely to just get all flying off the handle because like, you stubbed your toe. Like like if you become a spiritual powerful person and you stub your toe and you start like cursing things, like you might accidentally get karmic blowback because what if those curses actually stick? You actually would rather bless things if you stub your toe because then maybe it'll feel better. Maybe you'll get better luck in the process, and maybe you won't stub your toe next time. But I think there are lessons upon lessons upon lessons, and that every single moment in our life can be a lesson. And most people don't take themselves so dedicatedly to take that in and use that to fix themselves. Like a lot of people will hide behind the excuse, "Oh, I'm only human." Well, I'm sorry, but if the Christ originally was able to take a normal human form and ascend with it, then obviously anybody else can take a lifetime and do it too. I mean, maybe it takes multiple lifetimes, but a lot of people have been preparing for this.
Mhm.
So I know that I was because I had a spiritual reading with Andrew Bartzis. He's a pretty famous spiritual reader. But he read me and he was like, "Look, you had a life review, and their life review said you need to be right here, right now. Like you need to be in the 21st century, and you need to, be on point for this ascension. Like, is the time to be here." That's all I really know. I think there was a lot more in my life review than that, but I'm pretty sure, like, you know what I mean? Like that was that. Like, and it's funny because I skipped a lot. I didn't. I wanted to be in the 1970s and stuff like that. Like if looking back, like I wish I would have chosen to be born then too, and like two lifetimes to deal with things. But instead, I like I went straight from like 800 AD to now. So it has been kind of a really weird shock, growing up in a modern world because it's like I came straight from like the like sailboats and stuff like that, like from way back then. Although, if I told you the story of that life, it's pretty credible. Like most people would like they'd love to have a life like that. I It goes back to like 600 AD in like France, and I got murdered on a sacrificed on a fairy stone, which is like this 50 to 80-meter tall stone, which serves as an extraterrestrial guidepost. And this was in Avion, France. And somebody killed me on that freaking stone and stole my ability, my skin suit. I used to be able to shapeshift. They stole it from me. And I was basically forced into Hollow Earth extinction mode for like 200 years. And I could not find a way to reincarnate physically on surface Earth during that time period. I was basically wandering. I do remember speaking to like the spirits of the dinosaurs. It was really weird. But I was in Hollow Earth extinction mode, and it was like, that's about as close as I've been to hell. I wouldn't say it's terrifying, but like you're stuck there with a bunch of dead spirits. Like, good luck. Anyway, I finally did manage to, reincarnate on surface Earth, and I ended up in Japan. I ended up in Japan around 800 AD. I'm pretty sure the date is pretty accurate, but it ended up being like I was this woman sailboat captain, and we did fishing excursions, and we ended up getting blown off course in a huge storm and ended up in Fiji. And we shipwrecked in Fiji, and I don't remember how many of the crew survived. I know I did, but I don't know how many other people survived. But we ended up talking to the people in Fiji. They saved us basically, and taught us how they built their ships, so that we could rebuild a ship and go home. Well, also during this time, I guess they have some big, huge statues there. I think they're still there today, but I think they're very well hidden. Um, but they were extraterrestrial type statues. And I asked them about these things, and they told me that there was an extraterrestrial human civilization out in Mesoamerica. And I was like, I think some of the other crew survived. I talked them into going. We didn't go back to Japan. We went to Mesoamerica. We went to see, and I don't, it's going to sound really dumb because I can't remember if it was the Mayans or the Incans, but it was whoever was around in 800 AD in that area. They had extraterrestrials and humans living together. So I went there and I spent 25 years writing this all down in scrolls. Like I guess I learned a lot from them. I toured the whole area, and then when I was done and I was getting close to, I was getting old, I we we took a boat and we went all the way back to Japan. I think I might have been like, the last one around for my little crew. But I went all the way back to Japan and I took those scrolls back to the masters there, and they hid them away for prosperity because they're written in some script that is not spoken on Earth. Um, I have spiritually found these scrolls, and so has my friend Steve. They're in some archive in Japan. They're being kept. They're still alive. They're still there. Like the scrolls that I read, they still exist physically on this planet. It's my goal to somehow find them and read them and get access to that freaking vault. But one thing at a time. But I got,
Yeah.
my friend actually found them for me spiritually because I thought they were being kept in a shrine, but he found them in a secure access vault, like someplace that's high tech that's supposed to keep these things safe. But it's amazing to me that he was able to find that because it's independent confirmation that I actually went through this shit.
Wow.
Because it sounds like some fairy tale, like, so sorry, sci-fi story, but it was one of my lifetimes. So I
Right.
guess
I
like
love
there,
confirmation.
me too. It's kind of crazy. Um, because who, that whole lifetime could be, like I could write that whole thing out if I can remember it all from stem to stern and make that into a book or a series of books.
Yeah.
And like, people would read that and go, this is sci-fi. And then
Mhm.
if they were smart and they were any sort of spiritual reader, they'd be like, wait a minute, this is more than just sci-fi. This is like a real thing that happened. So, there's all kinds of surprises in the world, and we just have to know where to look for them.
Right. A good conversation.
Yes, I agree. So, um, let me think here. A couple things that I wanted to cover. Um, this is gonna all tie together, but one of the things I wanted to cover was where our chakras lead. I don't know if you have any experience with that or if you've explored your chakras, but they all actually lead somewhere because they're portals. Um,
Hmm.
your heart chakra should lead you to your home. Uh, and it's like home, spiritual home, but it's also the home close to this lifetime. So my heart chakra leads to Japan. It leads to the shadow of Mount Fuji. It leads to the beach there. Um, and I didn't know this. Like I found this out. I found this out because I had heard about like that your chakras can lead you to interesting places. So I devised an experiment. This is before I ascended and did all the crazy stuff. I was still a normal person back then. But what I did was I took some psychedelic substances. I took 5-MeO DMT from Amanita Columbia seeds. Those are technically legal Siebel seeds. They're from the Amazon rainforest. I made a snuff out of those, and I snorted that snuff. And then I took some Hawaiian baby wood rose seeds, which are also legal. Those are nature's LSA, kind of like LSD. And I took those too. They make you purge. So like after I purged and everything, I lay down on my bed and I had this crazy aha moment that I would take a crystal pyramid of quartz and use it to peer into my chakra system. And it freaking worked. Um, I found like in my throat chakra there are all of these crazy like comic books, just comic books out the wazoo. Uh, and it was so weird. It was like I had already drawn them already. It was so weird. You can find all kinds of crazy, interesting things inside your chakras. Um, I found a lot of stuff, and I looked up and down. But one of the most crazy and weirdest things that I found, which I want to talk about a lot, is my heart chakra, because it led me to this empty forest. And I thought, I thought that was so sad. I was like, you're telling me after all these lifetimes that I've lived that I didn't have any true loves and I didn't find them in my heart chakra. Like, what the fuck? Like, I didn't understand. Um, Later on down the line, my spiritual teacher tells me that you can build spiritual fortifications inside your heart chakra. Like, build yourself, a house inside your heart chakra. Um, and it's like a place for you to rest. It's like a fortification that makes you stronger. Um, Well, so I did this, and the funny thing was, I had this dream not before he had told me that, like not that long before he had told me that. And there's a very famous singer-songwriter named Tash Sultana. She and I were in this house, and it had all these musical instruments in it, and it was beautiful. It was a very squarish house on the outside, kind of with all these glass walls and stuff. But it was absolutely beautiful and stunning, and it was like modernistic, but kind of like deserty in a way, like kind of like South American or sorry, South the word is New Mexico. That kind of an area. Like Southwest kind of vibe to it. And I knew right away that I wanted that house to be my house. Like that was just all there's to it. If I'm gonna build a house in my heart chakra, it better be this house. So I built it, and it later on down the line, I found out that when I built that place in my heart chakra, it became like a spiritually real place that beings from the other realms could visit it, and that I could live there in the other realm. And that it was actually put on new Earth, like in other words, like the next level up Earth from like where humanity has been used to being. They say in the Bible, new heaven and a new earth. Well, that's not a lie, actually. Uh, but it's just because the separation between the separation between the two lowest dimensions in all of our adult lives up until this point, we have been on the lowest dimension, which is dimension one. I don't know if most people know the real meanings of the dimensions or whatever, but they're basically just bandwidth levels. So, like the physical dimension, the lowest dimension is the base level dimension, and it is how do I put this? Anyway, it's the lowest of the two blacklight dimensions. Above those two blacklight dimensions are the seven heavenly dimensions known as the white light domains. And then the 10th dimension, because there's only nine in total, but the 10th dimension is the whole of everything, which is time. So, humanity, when we talk about the ascension, like Earth is being poised to go up into the next level. And that would mean ending up on a new Earth because there's a much bigger Earth up there. And actually, as far as October 11th around midnight, this actually already happened. Like we literally like the entirety of the planet upshifted. I watched it happen before my very eyes. I had a very tough day that day, but I was just looking off into nowhere and talking with my entities, and all of a sudden, like I saw it wasn't just the air, it was like reality around me shift. And I was going, you gotta be kidding me. I was waiting 80 years for this. You gotta be kidding me. You can't tell me that the ascension just happened before my eyes. And they're like, yeah, we're in the next dimension now. So that's something that our listeners would like to know. I would like to know if anybody else can confirm this, but the Earth in the next dimension is like 900 or 700 times bigger than our original Earth. Um, so there's a lot more landmass, and there's also things that are already living there. So like, there's a lot of stuff to discover here, and we don't even know it. there was already like an eighth continent on Earth before we upshifted. Now I have no idea how many continents there are. Only that there's a lot more landmass, and that we humans, like the transition, the transition is so smooth that, like Steve had said, nobody would notice. Well, nobody fucking noticed. I haven't found anybody who's really noticed. I asked my one friend. He says, "Well, the air seems lighter." I was like, "Yeah, okay." Like nobody noticed but me, and I feel so alone. But from what I understand, this already happened. But at any rate, that all ties into you should try to explore your own chakra system. I think that's a wonderful thing that people should do. I found like Hindu gods and goddesses in my stomach chakra. It was the weirdest freaking thing. I found all this crazy stuff inside my chakra system. So I encourage people to, you could do it just meditatively, but I encourage you to get like a quartz, either pyramid or some sort of good point, good shaped point. So you can put it in the palm of your hand, and you take it from like your lowest chakras all the way up. And don't just assume there are only seven. There are numerous energy points in your body. So like it's kind of like a xylophone. You have your main chakras, but um, when I did it, I literally saw like different stuff. The major ones were the major, but there was little teeny points all the way up and down. Like so. In other words, when I looked myself up and down, like I started at the lowest, and I slowly would just move myself in like a tiny little clock ticks like up my body, and it would show me something different each and every single one. So I encourage people to explore their chakra systems and figure out where these things lead, and find out, like try to initiate some sort of contact with your higher self, whether or not you have to go to a spiritual teacher or reader to be able to tell you what you have. Um, like I read Mandy, and she has a Octurian. She knows it. Um, Actually, her Octurian and I were friends in a past life. Actually, I'm pretty sure we were lovers, but that's beside the point. Um, yeah, I don't even know where I was going to go with that. Like, I was just going to say people should reach out to their own higher selves. Anyway, I'll shut up.
Yes,
Yes,
definitely reach
definitely
out to
reach
your
out
higher
to your
self.
higher self.
The other thing that I wanted to cover was, remember when I said did those high spiritual meditations on LSD?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Those meditations are technically safe for anyone to do. They technically make you a more complete person, and I wanted to go into that. Um, so the first one, there's really like three major things that you should do to improve your spiritual health and be able to become a more complete person. One is you want to connect to your seed, okay? Your heart, when you were first born as a micro being and you were your first conception spark, and the interplay between your parents made you possible. Um, that first conception spark is still there in you to this day. It's called the seed. It's always inside the center of your heart. It's like a shining atom in the middle of your heart. I don't even know how else to describe it, but you want to find it and you want to connect to it, because you want to connect to it because that is like the core. Well, I wouldn't say it's the core because it's different, but it is the seed of all that which you are. And it is usually surrounded by a group of other atoms, which could be considered your council. But that just makes it easier to find. You're really just trying to connect to your seed. Through the seed, you can actually go down your conception spark. You could go into a womb meditation, get back into the womb if you're having trouble. Go all the way back to you being a fetus in the womb, and you see like you as you develop, and then you go all the way back until you get to your conception spark, and then you become one with your own conception spark. You can technically travel that all the way back and look down all your ancestor chain to see where you originally were born. You can um talk to your ancestors if you want to. That is a way to do that. But you want to make sure that when you embark on this journey, that you keep your residual image of your own lifetime very close and handy, because you don't want to get confused or mixed up with the past yous. Um, That's just something that can be done. I recommend that everybody try to connect to their seed. It's if you can't get it the first time, you want to try it over and over again until you actually click, because once you do, it makes you a more complete person. Um, the other thing that you can do, because these are things that aren't taught, like very few people know about this, and I don't know how Steve found out. If he read about it in some book or if he was trained by the extraterrestrials, because I'm pretty sure he was. But the other part of the meditation is to find your core. Your core is the one atom that has like the sum total of all you could ever be, kind of. It's really hard to describe in any other way than that. It almost looks like this. If you get really close to the atom, it's like this box, this shimmering box with all these little squares all over it. Each of these squares is like an independent motion of you doing one little thing, like, and they're like billions of little boxes inside this box, and like that is your core. Well, it flies around in the peripheries of your energy field and the edges of your energy field. So you want to find the core. It is like this bright shining atom that you will notice that is flying around in the edges of your energy field, and you want to grab a hold of that and connect to it. You want to find that, because between your core and your seed and your consciousness, you are then a complete person. And because a lot of people go around saying, oh, I'm not complete, or, they're just trying to fill some hole or some void in them. Like, it comes from the fact that we are not like made complete people, and like life knocks us around and we tend to lose that. So in order to recover that, we want to go and find our core and our seed, and we want to connect them to the whole of ourselves so that we become more like the true us. Um, that's a very high spiritual meditation, which I have not actually, I don't even think I actually talked about it on the air yet, because it's one of those things that I'm worried about giving away, because I worry that I'm going to get penalized for it. But I think that our listeners would actually love to know about that and attempt it for themselves. I think that it's a very healing thing in the long run. Sometimes, like, getting connected to that will cause you to remember some things. Sometimes, like, that's not necessarily as easy as it sounds. So there's that.
Well, it
I don't
sounds
know.
very healing.
Have you ever heard of doing that?
I have heard of like the womb aspect, but not seeing it as a seed.
Okay.
I like connecting even further, like going back
Hmm.
even before the womb, like that I can see that being extremely healing. I've done womb healing myself, where I had to through a meditative state, go back into the womb and be reborn, just to heal all of that. But to go even before that, I think that would be really healing. So that makes sense.
So one of the very first things that happened to me after I had that ascension thing, and the weirdness started happening, was when I went back my ancestor chain, I ended up finding out that a lot of my ancestors are female, and that was weird for me at the time. I was very comforted by it, but I was also like, what the fuck did I be a boy this time? I think benign vaginas are better. Whatever. So, like, I thought that to myself, and I was like, okay, this is a weird thought. I'll just brush that aside. But my ancestor gave me, like, it's gonna sound like the weirdest freaking thing and whatever, but she gave me a multi-dimensional vagina. It sits exactly where the real one should be. So, but I have a regular man's body, so like there's like a spiritual thing there, and like it reacts to like attraction. Like I like if somebody walks into the room, like, and this is something that most people don't understand either, is that like this whole thing people call chemistry and all that stuff, it's based on how well your energy likes each other. And women are the initiators usually. Women's energy reaches out to the male and decides whether or not the male's worth it for their time. That is actually like how things normally work. There's more than one reason why I say this. But anyway, my ancestor gave me basically what amounts to a multi-dimensional vagina. And it was the weirdest thing ever, because then whenever somebody was interested in me, I felt it, and it was like this weird buzzing sensation in between my legs. And I was going, is this normal for those of the other sex. Like, I'm like, is this normal? And they're like, no, this isn't quite normal. I'm going, okay, because she like literally came out of nowhere and just gave it to me, like out of nowhere, like flew like I feel her presence. All of a sudden, she's like, "Here, I want you to have this gift. Good luck with it. You're gonna turn into a girl. Good luck." And that was that. And I was like, well, fuck. But yeah, there's a book written by Ingo Swann. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He wrote a couple good books. He wrote one called Penetration, Extraterrestrials and Human Telepathy. But he also wrote a book called Biopsychic Sexuality: The Anatomy of Biopsychic Energies and Their Interplays Between the Sexes, or something like that. If you look up INGO and then SWANN, you'll find him. He was a psychic, and he was a very well publicized one. He did everything he could to prove it. But at any rate, he wrote a whole book about it because he turned on a spiritual sight in a special experiment, and he could never shut it off again until he had to have help like learning how to do that. But what he found was that he could see people's energies interacting. He could literally see in their chakra systems. He could see their blocks. He could see all that kind of stuff. And then what he did was he would go and sit in bars and watch people flirt with one another, and he found out that chemistry is like this energy between the two people. And the more that you learn how to like play with that, the more successful you are with that kind of interaction. Like flirting is more energy than it is anything else. You know what I mean? Like, and most people would be a lot more fulfilled if they knew that. But what he saw was like the women would go into the bars and they'd choose who they felt was most interesting, but their energy would do it. Like he would literally watch before they even flirted with anybody, before they talked to anybody, before they even looked around the room. Their energy would just reach out, and you could see the connection literally form between the two
Oh,
people. And like, and that's something that most humans have no awareness of. I think porn stars might be the most people who have the most awareness of it, and they don't even know what they're doing. You know what I mean? Uh, Not that it's a good or a bad thing. I'm just saying, like, you know what I mean? It's one of those things that isn't recorded. It's one of those things that I'm very curious about. Um, because like the whole attraction thing, like it's a mutual thing, but it's almost like an energy that you can learn to play with. And I think one of the biggest things you were saying about the womb meditation, which I have actually done before, and that was one of the things that I incorporated into the rest of this. But if you're trying to find your own seed, you have to conceptualize and visualize where it is and see the feel of it, and then you have to be able to grab a hold of it with your attention. Um, I think what like visual meditations, I think, are the best way to increase your own spirituality. If you create some kind of spiritual meditation and you use it visually, you're trying to enhance your own ability to see spiritually. Like, so you got to be able to feel and see where your core is and connect to it. You know what I mean? And that's like a multi-step process. But when you're talking about like finding like visual meditations online or something like that, where somebody wrote a really nice peaceful one or something like that, the same imagination power that you use in order to do that is the exact same one you use to interact with the spiritual world. I think people need to learn that. I think that that's one of the big things that like psychedelics are like. I wouldn't call them a shortcut because they don't last for so long, but psychedelics are like the way to show yourself how to feel and interact with energy in a very visual way, because if you can actually see it, then you can actually interact with it. You have to conceptualize it's there, and you have to use your energy senses to figure it out. But in order to like help heal someone, you also want to be able to figure out how to heal them, repair them back to blueprint health through visualizations. So you want to visualize the very best things, and you want to teach yourself to be able to you want to sharpen yourself so that you're always observing, but you want to learn how to interact too, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
And something that we should address is like you are not your thoughts. Especially for depressed people or anybody having trouble with anything negative or resting on their lives. You aren't your thoughts. Like, your thoughts could come from anywhere, technically. So, like, that's something that people don't get. I think that the original person who said, I am, therefore I think, or sorry, I think, therefore I am, had it backwards. It's really, I am, therefore I think. You can exist without thinking. It's actually very difficult for modern minds, but like some people say that they don't even like talk to themselves in their own head. I always have, so I don't know.
Hmm.
I wouldn't have any clue what that would be like. I don't really get silence very often. Usually if I shut up, some other being starts talking to me. The only time I ever get any rest is when I sleep.
Yeah, I definitely have to. Sometimes our thoughts are like from those that we've come from, our DNA, our ancestors, and so that healing, healing your ancestral line, your DNA, that can heal a
Yeah.
lot of those thoughts.
One of the weird gifts that I was given was the ability to upgrade my own DNA. And I've shared DNA with some of the spiritual entities that I have shared bodies with or shared love with. Um, that's something weird, and that's something that I don't think anybody else can do. A lot of people can actually read DNA. You can repair it, and it will advance on its own, and it will advance through your spirituality too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so if you connect to your core and you connect to your
Hmm.
seed and you become a more complete person, it will help you accelerate your healing process, and it will also accelerate your DNA getting a little better. Well, I shocked the aliens, I guess, because they weren't expecting me to be able to modify my own DNA. But I had this aha moment, and then the visualization just worked. Like, my DNA changed, and I was able to intermix my DNA with my dragons. Uh, so afterwards, they said, "This is how new species are born, human. Good luck." Like, I still look like a physical human, but inside, I feel so much different than I did years ago. Like, there's so much more going on underneath the scenes. It's so much more sensitive. It's super weird. I'll just tell you that. It's super weird.
Yeah, our DNA holds so much power
It does.
and so many secrets.
Yes. Funny that humans are combinations of Syrian, reptilian, Lyran, um, the Neanderthal, and Zeta Gray. And from what I understand, the gray DNA is used as glue to keep the rest of it together. Um, and that is us being a hybrid species, and we were created somehow. I From what Steve said, there was 8 original human females who were the original progenitors of our species. I have no idea if they were born from test tubes or if they were born from a womb chakra on the planet, which sounds right. I don't know if you knew that or not, but that's how new life is placed on planets. Is beings will go there and like they will end up like going through a birth thing and a sensual thing in an earth in a chakra on the planet, and then the chakra will help give birth to new life on the planet. Um, I guess it's not very common knowledge.
And go through the woman's portal.
Yeah, except that there are womb chakras on the planet itself, and if you go there, if you took your whatever there, you could basically, I guess, multiple species come there to give birth and
Hmm.
have their species become part of the planet. Um, I don't really know exactly how it works. I've never done it before. I've only been explained to it in little bits and details, and what I've experienced. I first
It's kind
learned
of
about it through. Hmm?
To come into the human to the human race? That's what you're
No,
saying?
that's how any race would be born onto a planet.
Oh,
Like in
any
other words,
species.
two aliens technically two aliens could go there and have like, spiritual sex, and from what I understand, the species would come out of the chakra. I'm not entirely certain. It would put them into physical um standing on the earth, from what I understand. It would be the birth of a new species on the planet. This is how it's done, from what I understand. Like planets will open themselves up to a species and allow them to use their womb chakras to procreate on the planet, therefore giving them, surface status and ability to be there and incarnate there.
Mm. Well, I have really enjoyed this conversation, and I've learned a few stuff too, and just hearing your side of, because we all have our poking each other's brains. I really enjoyed it.
Me too. I definitely did as well.
Yeah, I really, really liked hearing your side of things
Well, I would like to
because
hear more your side of things as well.
yeah, we'll have to do another one,
We should.
another so that we could go into different aspects and different areas. I think we've covered a lot tonight, and I um I wouldn't mind coming back on to hearing more of what you've got to say as well.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll get this podcast up online as soon as possible, and you can push it out to your people, and I'll put it out to mine, and we'll see what happens, and maybe we'll do another show. I would love to.
Yeah, I really like the seed part though. Really like the fact that connecting um with the seed and that spark. Like I think that that's something that I really really
Well,
resonated with that.
I would love for you to do it and then get back to me and tell me how it went, because I would love to hear about the effects. I think that there's not enough research in on it because
Yeah.
so few people have the opportunity to bump into the meditation technique, and then you have to actually train yourself to be able to do it. These things, aren't always there.
Yeah. So yeah, that one is something that I would definitely really get into with the because like I said, I did the womb healing, but never like going back even before that. So I think that could fucking change a lot of people's lives.
I think so too. I think a lot of spiritual people are looking for deeper meditations that aren't really well known. Um,
Uh-huh.
I think it was hidden from the surface of the earth so that we couldn't find it because they don't like what we can do if
Hmm.
we learn how to do it. But hey, whatever. Small little steps for freedom, right?
Yeah, we figure it out and then we share it with others like you shared it with me. And then what was the boxing that you said again?
Which
The one
thing?
that's around our aura.
Okay, that's the core. That's like
Yes.
it's like one little atom that flies around the peripheries of your energy field. It's like in other words, it flies around the edge, and it's like the core of your personality, and
Mm.
it's always busy, and it's always flying around you, like in the edges, and you want to catch it. Basically, you want to reach out and connect to it, and you want it to be like, so you have a direct connection between your heart, your mind, and your core, like, and it puts you into a set of balance, basically.
Okay, yeah. Both of those are very, very resonating with me.
Yay, I did something right.
Yeah, no, yeah, those two are really like those I feel like all said and done, those are the two main things that really I I uh I wanted to hear and I wanted to connect with because I really feel really resonating with those two. So I would definitely I'm gonna see how that goes.
Yay! Well, I want to know. Tell me about it.
Yes, I feel power from those. Deep, deep power. There's power in that. So
There
definitely gonna do
is.
that.
Yeah, I wanted to share that with people because I don't want to be the only one. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you get to a certain point, you're like, man, I have to teach others so that other people can do this, so that they can get as far, as they can go too.
Yeah, that's what we're here. We're all in this together. So yeah, that's what we're here for. Well, we're already here, so might as well share what comes through.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, so definitely gonna do those and then I'll let you know how that goes. But thanks again for having me on your show.
Oh, thank you for being on my show. My show is blessed because of you.
Thank you, and sharing new information, right? Well, I don't like to say new information. I feel like all of it, it's like we already know, but when somebody speaks it and you feel a resonation to it, that's when you know that there's a connection there. You're
Yes,
remembering.
definitely.
You're not learning, you're remembering. So thank
And
you
it's taken
for
us. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. We will see each other next time. And in closing, I just want to say good luck and everybody have fun and enjoy spirituality.
for sure. Have a good one.
Thank you, Mandy. Have a good night.
Good night, Tim. Bye bye.
And good night to the audience. Mwah.